Pleasure to introduce Paige Frazier of the Paige Group. Paige has been in Birmingham working with small businesses for over 20 years, but she didn't start here. She started her career really at the University of New York at Brockport, and then moved into the CDFI lending world, where she worked with Lift Fund on loans up to $250,000. So that's $250,000. So she is an expert in everything from marketing to strategy to financing and all of those pieces that come with being a small business and a small business owner. She loves to say, now I'm in a position to assist business owners with getting it right from the very foundation. Everyone should have a business of their own. So Paige, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, Catherine. Thank you for having me. And that is exactly true. I don't care what you do. Everybody should have a business of their own because everybody has special gifts. I'm going to go ahead. Do you want me to go ahead and start with the full presentation?
Let's go through some vocabulary key concepts first, and then we'll get into the presentation.
Okay.
Okay. Oops. Sorry, I got to switch screens. Sorry, folks. Technical difficulties. Okay. Okay, so if you haven't checked out our YouTube channel, you will find a wealth of resources there from many of our partner organizations. First and foremost, Rebound Birmingham is not just the Paige Group and SBDC, it is first and foremost run and headed by the strong team over at Rev Birmingham, a place-based organization, a nonprofit in Birmingham, helping to create a more vibrant place for living, working, and playing in Birmingham. So you can head over to our Rebound Birmingham YouTube page and check out Financial Literacy 101 and Pitching Like a Pro. And those are kind of prerequisites for this Sales 101 video. But if you don't or haven't seen them yet, we're going to post this video up on our YouTube channel as well, and you'll have a chance to kind of go through the slides again and revisit the concepts. So, some concepts and vocabulary before we get started. So the first thing, and Charmaine Chapman, I saw you come in here, so you'll be happy with this financial literacy, shout out to Operation Hope. So the first thing that you want to understand when you're thinking through sales is what your revenue is, what your profit is, and what your cash flow is. And so there's a fantastic book by Mike Michalowicz called Profit First, where he talks about how revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, and cash is king. So revenue is the money that you generate from sales and other activities that brings money into your business. Profit is the difference between your revenue and expenses, and cash flow is the inflows and outflows of cash. So not your economic terms, nothing too heavy here, but those three concepts and the differences between revenue and profit and cash flow are really critical to moving through understanding your sales cycle. So the next set of vocabulary that we want to look at is your economic engine. This is what drives your business forward. This is what is the basis of your cash flow. Your economic denominator is the one single factor that you continue to improve, which directly increases your profits. And related to that concept, we're going to be talking about leading indicators. And those are indicators and data that you can influence that correspond to your success. Now, lead indicators can be something like the weather, but you can't really influence the weather. So while that could be a good gauge of how successful you can be, a lead indicator that you want to use to measure the potential success of your business is something that you'll be able to actually influence. Lagging indicators, on the other hand, are data that you will see after you have either been successful or not. So a lagging indicator is the revenue, is the profit, those numbers that you're thinking through. Okay, funneling leads. So funneling and your pipeline, they kind of describe the same thing, or a similar concept. We're going to use them, I think, pretty interchangeably in this seminar because this is just Sales 101. But funneling is the process of taking a customer from interested to the final sale, and then bringing them back into that cycle so that they can continue purchasing from you. Now, one of our earlier videos, actually, we've got a couple great videos on marketing, branding, and online marketing tools, talks a lot about marketing. And marketing basically helps you get your brand out there, helps people understand where you are. It takes someone, a marketing qualified lead is where we want to kind of start the sales conversation. It's those potential customers that are really quite interested. They're on your website, browsing around, they're on your Instagram page, browsing around, trying to see what's in it for them. Whereas a sales qualified lead is a potential customer considering a purchase. So I think of the difference between marketing qualified lead and sales qualified lead is a marketing qualified lead, or MQL, is somebody who is on a landing page, who has just arrived at your website. Whereas a sales qualified lead is somebody who's on the checkout page. So making sure that you understand that marketing is a fantastic way to get folks to your website, but just because they're on your website doesn't mean you're generating sales from them. And so to get them to that sale, using that funnel to make sure that they're actually going through the process to make it there. Okay, and so one of the big ways to make sure that you're getting the right folks and attacking the right bids or opportunities is to think through government contracting certifications. Now, certifications, once you have them, they're like a badge of admission for a lot of different state and federal level bids and even private company bids. So say, for example, you sell pound cakes and you want to do business with Alabama Power. Well, Alabama Power buys pretty much everything. I mean, it's a huge business, right? So they buy lots of the engineering and construction and electrical work and obviously utilities, but they also have events. And so they need caterers for those events. So for you to do business with Alabama Power, if you are a registered DBE or MBE, and the links are going to show up in the PDF file that you'll get after this presentation. It'll take you directly to the websites where you can start the registration process. If you're a disadvantaged business or a minority business, you can qualify for Alabama Power's set aside sort of contracting goals that they have, where they look specifically at women and minority owned businesses to fill those contracts. Those are the state level certifications. Honestly, they're easier, but they're still not easy to get. Generally, they take about a year. So it really is a pretty significant badge of admission. And then at the federal contracting level, we have woman-owned small business, service-disabled vet-owned small business, 8A business development programs, and hub zone certifications. And again, going back to that funneling concept, you may identify an opportunity, but if you don't have that badge of entry, if you don't have one of those set-aside opportunities, then you may not have options to actually bid on that contract. So at this point, I'm going to take a second to take any questions. If we've got any questions, feel free to either unmute yourself or drop it right in the chat. And as we go through, you are more than welcome to continue dropping questions in the chat. But at this point, if there are no questions, I'll give you just a second.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Mark.
All right. So where do we find these opportunities for government contracts to begin with?
Fantastic question. So a lot of different agencies list them right on their website. If they're federal contracts that you're going after and you're not sure where to start with that program, or if you're not sure where to start, the Alabama Small Business Development Center has a sister organization called PTAC. They are the Procurement Technical Assistance Center. They are a no-cost one-on-one confidential business advising specifically geared towards government contracting. And we subscribe to a system called Bid Match, where you can get bids in your inbox on sometimes a daily basis based on your NAICS code. But a lot of organizations, a lot of cities will actually just list them right on their websites. So I live in the city of Tuscaloosa. The city of Tuscaloosa has just a list of bids that they have open and upcoming bids, and you can usually find them there. However, the county of Tuscaloosa has them posted on a corkboard in the basement. So different organizations do it very differently. And refining your target market really helps you understand who you're going to be best targeting. And I think Paige will go into figuring out who your customer is. So Mark, does that kind of answer your question? I'll drop PTAC's contact in the chat so you can reach out to them directly, or you're more than welcome to reach out to me and I can connect you to them.
Yeah, that made sense. I would, Google and the local government agencies and check them out on the websites. It made sense to me.
Absolutely. Yeah, if you go to a specific website, often they'll have if you scroll down all the way to the bottom, they'll have bid or contracting opportunities, and sometimes they'll have a vendor login. Usually universities will have vendor logins. And for the state of Alabama, especially for the school systems, you have to be registered in STARS, and that's the State Award Accounting. I can't remember what it stands for, but it's STAARS. And it's basically their pool of applicants for different contracts that they pull from. Great question.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks so much for asking. All right, now it's time for, it keeps disappearing, I'm sorry. Pull up Paige's presentation. Okay. Can y'all see Paige's presentation?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. All right, well, it's my pleasure to turn it over to the real sales expert in the room, Paige Trader.
No.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, guys, the purpose for me being here today is to really share with you how to prepare your business to be able to sell. We know that everybody can put their business out there, but it's important to be prepared to sell. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide. Thank you, Catherine, for having me. The importance that we need to start with is knowing your company. You have to understand who your company is, what your company does, what products or services that you offer, and how you're going to get it out there. We're going to do that with understanding why people buy, what are the buying triggers, what are the modes of selling, like the different categories. Hang on, let me move this. The different category. And then there's what's called a sales cycle. And then we have the terms that you should know and just a couple of things that you want to remember. Next. Okay, here we are. Now, we know that because we're in the pandemic, there has to be some certainty and uncertainty going on right now. But what's really important is, what is the certainty in your business? What is there that you have in your business right now that you're really certain about within all of the uncertainty? So we kind of want to do a poll, and we want to know, where are you today? So Catherine, if we can go ahead and pull up that poll, we're going to talk about, survival, protection. Are you overwhelmed? So if you can just go ahead and click on one of these that talks about, I'm in a position where I can actually grow now, or, I need to revamp or pivot and kind of start all over again, or I have so many opportunities right now that I'm a little bit overwhelmed, or I'm in a protection mode right now, or I'm in a survival mode right now. So we kind of want to look at those to see, where everybody is. So it looks like we have 56% of the people that says, hey, I can grow, and then we have 20% of the people that says, hey, I have opportunities. 20% say, hey, I'm in a survival mode, I need some help. And we have 10% who actually says, I need to go ahead and revamp. So thanks. So it looks like the majority of the people right now are saying, hey, I can grow. I can get some growth in there. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to look at that in terms of how to grow. Thanks, Catherine. That is excellent. That is excellent. So the majority of people saying, I can grow. I'm in survival mode. Okay, that's perfect. So let's go ahead and let's actually talk about growth and how to get there through the sales process. So that's what we want to do. I don't know how to get rid of that. I guess Catherine has to go ahead and get rid of that. So if this is your season and your business is profiting, we want to prepare you to grow. So the next thing that we want to look at is we want to look at what does sales look like between now and the end of September. What have you put together? What have you prepared? I think I can get rid of that. What have you actually prepared to be able to have some type of growth between now and the end of September? So if you can get a pen and a paper, I want you to actually take a look at what your next step should be. So your first step should be, what kind of customers do I actually have in my pipeline? How much money are they actually spending with me between now and the end of September? How many more people can I actually put in to my pipeline, into my system, to actually be either a returning customer, a current customer, or a new customer? Now, today is the 15th, so we only have 15 more days. But that does not mean that you cannot actively get new customers, service current customers. So you need to find out how much money can I actually get between today and the end of the month. There has to be a goal for each month. If you are in business, there has to be a goal for each month. If you're actually starting in business, create new customers. So the next thing we want to look at is we want to look at your plan through the next 90 days. So fourth quarter, we want to look at how much money can I actually bring into my company between October and December. Is that a peak period for my business and what I do? Is that a slow period for my business and what I do? So you want to kind of look at those areas. So in order to get ready to sell to your customers, you need to be able to put your business out there. So in order to put your business out there, you want to have a budget. Every business should have a budget of what they plan to spend on advertising to get their business in front of their customers. So Catherine, if you would, can you pull up the poll that would share the budget questions that we're asking? So the answer is simple. Do you have a budget to increase your sales? Do you not have a budget in your business? And are you not in business just yet? Okay. So 33% said, yes, I have a budget. 33% said, no, I don't have a budget. And it looks like 40, 50 is going up. We're going to wait a few minutes.
Give them just another second. We'll close the poll. We'll close the poll in 15 seconds.
Okay, great. Wait, a budget and having a budget in your business is one of the reasons that people are able to look at how the business has become successful with the advertising they've chosen. If you don't set aside a specific budget, typically what happens is you're sporadically doing things that have no measurability, or that do not have strategic measurability, I should say. So
can you see the poll results, everyone?
Yeah, I think I can see it now. Okay, so 40% said, yes, I have a budget. 20% said, nope, I don't have a budget. And 40% of us are actually not in business. Of the people that have responded, everybody hasn't responded. So I want to go ahead. There is another poll that we're going to do, which is how much do you actually spend on a monthly basis to communicate to the general public what products and service do you offer? So those of you that do have a budget, how much do you spend monthly, to let people know who you are and what you do?
And if you don't have a budget or you don't have a business yet, estimate which of these brackets you think you would fall in, and we'll give it 45 seconds before we close this poll.
Sure.
10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay, perfect. This polling thing, I really like this. So 44% of you said that you spent between $0 and $300 on your monthly awareness. 33% said you spend 300 to 1,000, and 25% of you said that you spend 1,001 plus. So that's an excellent way for the group to realize the importance of advertising dollars. You have to sell your company. You have to continue to put your company out there so that people will know who you are and what you do, especially in this time of uncertainty. So because there are so many businesses who have lost their business, this is the most crucial time to continue to advertise, to continue to put your business out there, you know, whether it's through, it doesn't depend on what medium it is. I always say that you can advertise from a postcard, from a flyer, at a Walmart shopping center to the SEC football game. I mean, advertising is advertising. As long as you do it on a consistent basis, that's really the key. So let's talk about your 90-day plan. If you don't have a plan to generate revenue between now and the end of the year, how can you expect revenue? So what I'm going to ask you to do is create a calendar of what you would like to generate on a monthly basis, even if you are a startup. If you're a startup, what kind of plan can you put into place to generate revenue between now and September? What kind of plan can you put into place to generate revenue for the fourth quarter, October through December? So technically, if you are a startup, it's imperative that you put a plan in place to generate revenue. If you're an existing company, you probably have a plan already to start generating revenue. But now is most crucial that you begin to implement that plan and focus. If you're a solopreneur, if it's just you, create that plan, focus on that plan, work on it like you're in a corporate company and you're giving them your 9 to 5. You know, and then find ways that you can create multiple streams of income within your planning if you're a solopreneur. So for instance, we had a couple of people that registered, and I think one of the ladies had an alterations company. So if you're working with an alterations company out of your home or out of an office, but you're a solopreneur, for the month of September, what is going on that you can be involved with to help you get your name out there, to find people who need alterations? If you have a 90-day plan, what are you going to do to get in front of people who may need alterations, who may need dressmaking, who may be having a wedding or some kind of special event? Are you going to use social media? Are you going to use traditional media? And we'll talk a little bit about that as well. Are there any questions? Okay, no questions? Okay, I want to go to pricing your product.
Paige, I've got a question actually.
Oh, sure.
So the brackets that we put up were 0 to 300, 301 to 1,000, 1,001 plus. How did you come up with those brackets?
Well, the size of the company usually determines how much a person is willing to put into their advertising campaign.
What's
When
a
you have
good amount? What's like a good percentage? Are there benchmarks for this?
Well, no, there aren't benchmarks. It really depends on how much you have chosen to budget to grow your company on a quarterly basis. Say, for instance, if you're a startup and you only have $300, it's imperative that that $300 is consistent for at least 6 months. So say, for instance, if you have $300 to do a digital billboard, which is 2 miles away from your location, you want to do that digital billboard, which is very doable and affordable, at $300 a month, every month on a consistent basis. Now, depending on how many people you want to reach with your information really determines how much money you can afford to spend or want to spend. So you can also use that $300 simply to do flyers in a Walmart shopping parking area on a consistent basis. If you continue to put a flyer in a specific location that might serve thousands of people on a consistent basis, you're going to get some results. The key is consistency. So a lot of people say, hey, I want to do radio. Well, radio is a mass medium. You may not need all of the people that it's reaching, which could be a waste of money. So how you determine how much you spend determines how much you can afford. Does that answer your question?
It does, thank you.
Okay, sure. Let's go ahead and look at pricing the product or the service. So when you get ready to price the product that you have, you want to look at how much did you put into that product? How much did you buy it for? And then you want to look at what is my competitor charging? And then you want to look at what percentage markup could I put on this that really makes a difference for me? And then when you're looking at service, you want to look at, okay, what actual materials have I had to purchase in order to produce this service, event, project for this person? What is my cost per hour? How much is it? How many hours am I going to put in this? And what is my cost per hour? What are my competitors charging? You want to look at that as well. So those are some of the things that you want to look at when you're getting ready to price your product or service and put it out to the public. It's also very important that you have a physical list of what you charge so that customers don't think you're just pulling it out of the sky. So it's important to have a list of what your costs are and how you achieve the cost of where you are. Are there any questions about pricing your product?
Can I add a note there?
Yeah, absolutely.
If you are a contractor and you charge hourly, depending, if there's a lot of factors that play into that, you can still document your process. And that's really important, especially for your company to grow. If you don't document your processes, you are going to end up mistakenly underpricing some jobs. And, it usually doesn't happen that you mistakenly overprice a job. So you're usually going to lose money if you don't have that systematic process of pricing. And price is one of the 5 P's of marketing. So it really is a very fundamental concept that's going to get you to making those sales.
Absolutely. Thanks, Catherine. It's absolutely right. Now let's talk about—
I have a question.
Oh, okay.
I was wondering if you're in an international business, is there any specific pricing formula that you have developed in that sense?
So you're saying if you want to sell your product or service internationally, is there a special formula?
Yes.
Well, if you operate here in the States and you're selling a product internationally, first you want to look at your competitors to see what they're doing if you are not sure how to price your product. Then you want to look at what did you pay for your product? What should your markup be in order to generate a profit for your company?
Mm-hmm.
And you might sell something here for $100. You might sell it over there for $50. But you really need to see, if I sell it over there for $50, what kind of a profit am I going to get, because my company is still located here. So I don't have a specific formula, but you certainly want to look at what it costs you, what your markup should be, what your competitors are doing. And that should really help you garner the price that you want to charge.
Thank you very much.
Certainly.
Yusuf, two things. One, and this is more on the import side of things rather than the export side. Items that are imported into the United States, basically, if you multiply the manufacturing costs 8 to 10 times, you'll get sort of what your minimal retail price needs to be. I don't know if that is the equivalent, but the shipping fees, any taxes, any customs regulations, insurance that needs to be put on those products. So if you're sending samples or a large pallet, I mean, this isn't a problem that is in the front of our minds right now, but I mean, a lot of shipments were stopped halfway across the ocean as the tariffs went up earlier this year and last year with the trade situation with China. We have an international trade division that can help you do that research to see what local competitors are charging in local international markets, and if there are local manufacturing capabilities that can reduce the manufacturing and transportation costs of manufacturing in the United States. So again, it's kind of all under the SBDC umbrella. We've got a lot of stuff going on, but they can help you specifically price those products.
Certainly. I've done the previous part that Ms. Fraser talked about earlier about looking at the competitor prices and comparing my costs, expenses, and everything else. But your answer is certainly very helpful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Catherine, is that PIGTAC? Is PIGTAC the organization that would be able to help with more international business?
No, although government contracts do extend overseas often, but it's the Alabama International Trade Center.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay, let's talk about understanding who your customer is. So if you have, depending on the product or the service that you offer, in order to begin to sell to a customer, you have to know who your customer is. Typically, we create customer awareness by targeting. Is my customer a man? Is my customer a woman? What are the age demographics of my targeted customer? Now, you can have a product or a service and it can be offered to anyone. However, you want to have what's called a targeted customer. You want to have a customer that you know specifically needs, wants, can afford your product or service. So when it comes to knowing who your customer is, you have to create opportunities, surveys for people to tell you who they are. So if you're doing an e-commerce, you might want to try to be able to get some kind of a quick survey in there to say, you know, are you a man or a woman? What is your age group? You want to know their habits, if possible. You want to know, like, are they on social media? You know, do they have kids? You know, anything that you can find out about your customer, you want to know. Typically, when someone purchases for something from you, you're able to capture information about them. So you want to be able to capture information that would help you know who's actually purchasing my product, who actually wants to use my service, who needs my service, or who can afford my service. So what you want to do is create ways to know exactly who your customer is. And then you want to find out, where is that customer? Like, where do they hang out? Where can I find them? You know, and now in the pandemic age of where we are, you know, everybody has a telephone, you know. So we know that that is a great way to reach people, but how do I do that? Do I reach them during a text message campaign? Do I go ahead and do some SEM, search engine marketing, so that digitally I can come up whenever that customer is on their phone? You know, do I do some traditional advertising like, you know, radio, TV, or billboards, or direct mail? How am I going to reach them? So we have a small survey that's going to say what channels, what channels, social channels, mediums do I think my customer uses? So, Catherine, yeah, there it is. What are your sales channels? So if you use any of these to reach your customer, would you let us know? Wow, look at that. Okay, take a minute and let people kind of decide how they use it. And it can definitely be more than one. It just does, doesn't have to be just one media.
All right, we'll close the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay, great. So everybody's on social media. And that is excellent, excellent, excellent. We have 43% that are working digitally to get their message out, and 14% are direct mail. Nobody's using television or radio anymore. Word of mouth is at 71%, and then that 14% is other. Can you guys who put in other, can you let me know what kind of other medium you might be using to get your message out? Or in the chat, can you put in any kind of medium that is not up here that you might be using that we're not even talking about? So I'm going to go ahead and start talking about where your customer is, and putting your message out to your customer and actually tracking those results. So when you decide to advertise on social media, the question is, are you purchasing social media to with ad campaigns, or are you actually just putting the message out there in the groups, or just posting it from your own post? And you want to know how successful that is. Well, if you have 5,000 followers, research shows that only 20% of those followers may actually see your message. So that's where a lot of people, promotional products, my business, oh, okay, that's my other comment. Okay, great. Everybody thinks, oh, I have so many followers, I can go ahead and put this out there. Well, Facebook is not, is a money-driven company too. So they're not going to allow you to reach all of those friends that you have at no cost. However, social media advertising is very minimal. So $30 over a 5-day period can give you well over 1,000 posts of people in a targeted demographic. And that's something that we can go in depth to in a later date if you're interested in doing that. But it's very important that you use the free mediums in every way possible. Direct mail is a medium that is also becoming stronger and stronger. It died out for a while, but it's coming back because people are at home. So direct mail is a very strong medium. It was interesting to see that no one's using television or radio. They are both mass mediums, which does not hone in to a specific small business or a specific area. So we certainly understand why that may have been a zero. Placing your message, this is most crucial. I don't know if anybody put it in the chat, but the strongest means of promoting any kind of product or service in today's environment is video. So if you have a business, it is imperative that you create your own home video. You can start a YouTube channel. You can go live on any of these social medias. And the reason for that is because people don't want to read, even small billboard messages. So create a video for your business where you're just talking, just like we're talking today. Or maybe you need to do a product demonstration. You can actually go on and talk about who you are and what you do and who your service best fits. But you want to be able to talk to people just like we're talking, because it creates relationship. And then finally, the one that you want to do most is you want to track your results. You want to be able to see what kind of analytics did this produce. And if you do it on social media, they actually give you the analytics. They tell you how many people it reached. They tell you the demographics that it reached. So if you're a startup when you're in the concept stage, or even if you're an existing business, go ahead and begin to use those free services until you're able to get a point to generate revenue to be able to purchase at a deeper level. We can go ahead to the next. Unless there are any questions, we can go ahead to the next screen. Okay, let's talk about why people buy. Now that you've created, now that you have your business at a point where you can go ahead and sell. Here's one thing I always tell people: never advertise if you're not ready to take care of the sales that will potentially come in. That can really destroy your business. So why do people buy? People buy because they have personal needs and wants. They want to increase their social status. They want to look better. They want great quality of whatever they have. They want availability. If they want to get something, they want it to be available, which is very important when you're running a business. There are people who may advertise and run out of products. That's not good. People want to know that when they come to you to get a product, or when they come to you to get a service, it's available. Time sensitivity. That's another reason why people buy. Like right now, the iPhone 11 might be popular, but here comes the iPhone 13. So people are going to want that. So the iPhone 11 will no longer have the value that the 13 was if you decide that that's something that you want. But be specific about the type of product or service that you have. Next screen. Catherine. Here we are. So the question is, if I'm getting ready to sell something, what is going to motivate people to buy from me? Or what is going to motivate people to buy, period. So people like to purchase things that might be a luxury. And what might trigger that is the bling bling on what you're offering. You know, if you're at a certain level where the quality of what you have is a luxury item, then you want to be sure that you're in luxury places. You want to make sure that your business is in certain magazines or certain hotels, or and then there's entertainment. You know, if you're the kind of business where what you have is going to produce a certain type of entertainment or put you in a certain type of entertainment area, you want to do that. Same thing with education. If something in education, if your kid needs certain kind of, I don't know, car when they go to school, certain kind of books, what is going to trigger them to buy your product or service? What's going to motivate them? Where does the necessity come in for what you have to offer? Why is your product, why is your service necessary? That is going to create, you're going to have certain words in your marketing campaigns, in your business, that will motivate people to buy from you. So it's important to have keywords and triggers for reasons that people buy from you. Can we go to the next slide? Modes of selling. Now, there are different areas where you can create a list of people to buy from you. If it's B2B, if it's business to business, that means that your business is selling directly to another business. So that's going to be a whole email list, a whole contact list of a separate clientele. And then there's B2C, which is business to consumer. And that's more like if I go to Publix and I buy something from Publix, that's business to consumer. If it's business to government, I may be a uniform manufacturer and I'm selling to the Air Force. If it's customer to business, I might be at a pawn shop and I have something that I need to sell to the pawn shop people. Or if it's customer to customer, like Craigslist. So those are just different opportunities and different lingos that business people use to create pockets of people who do business. Can I have the next slide? Here we are in the stages of the sales cycle. It's very important that you follow the different stages to create your sales cycle. It's very important that you have a cycle. So what we want to do is you want to make sure that you have your prospect list. You have a group of people that you consistently want to contact. And you want to make sure that those people in some way have shown an interest in your business. And then you want to begin to plan. You want to put together a strategy of what you're going to say to them when you communicate to them, or what you're going to sell to them, and understand the benefits that it can have for those people. And then you actually want to go ahead and approach them and let them know who you are and what you have. And you can do that by calling a list of people that you have. You can do that by your email contact list, your texting list, your social media that's specifically targeted to them. And then after you approach the prospect, you want to assess the situation, the meeting that you had with them. You want to assess what you're going to put together to give to them. And then you'll do your presentation. And when you do your presentation, you may very well get objections. And when you get those objections, always remember that no typically doesn't mean no. Or should I say, sometimes no means no, and you can accept no. But typically when you're working with someone who can use your product and service, no means that they don't have enough information. And then if they are in a position where they haven't said no, or you're able to overcome the objections, then you want to look at the commitment that you're able to make to help them. It's so important to be able to be a help to anybody that you're addressing. And then actually you want to go ahead and follow up. And then the other thing that we want to talk about on the next slide is the buying cycle. And the buying cycle is, number one, you want to have awareness. You want to be aware of what your client's needs are. You want to be sure that there is an interest. Don't sell to someone who actually has no interest in what you're doing. And you can even walk away from those people and say, thank you for letting me know that you're not interested. And then there are those that have a desire, that really want and really can use your product. There might be some objections, and then you have to learn how to overcome those objections. And then it's actually action. Once you learn how to handle those objections, you actually go ahead and ask for the sale, and then begin to move forward with that client. That's actually when the sale starts, is when your customer or client says, yes, I'm interested. Next.
So just before we move on to the next slide, this is an example of what a funnel could look like. So you take somebody who your marketing team has made them aware of your brand, and they've identified that they're aware and potentially interested. And then you bring them through and say, okay, this product category might be the one for you. And they, kind of continue down that funnel, or potentially a loop, so that they continue to be one of your customers.
Absolutely. And then kind of like Taylor did, these are some sales 101, because that's where we are. Vocabulary, just, a prospect is a potential customer. Cold calling is when you reach out to new customers and clients and consumers. And then when you reach out on a cold call, a lot of times you get what's called a gatekeeper. And the gatekeeper is the person who actually keeps you from getting to the decision maker. So you have to continue to create ways to get around that gatekeeper. And then you want to have a unique selling position. You want to have something that makes your product stand out from the competitors. That's why it's so important to know who are your competitors serving the same market that you're serving. And networking is crucial. And so you say, well, how do I network in a pandemic? You can join the Chamber of Commerce. You can watch city council meetings actually on the internet. There are many Zoom networking opportunities via social media, via the ASBDC. So you want to find ways to connect with people in your industry and connect with people who could potentially be your customer. And then the customer relation management system. There are many systems, softwares that can help you create how to best relate to your customer, or you can create one of your own. So those are just a couple of general vocabulary words. And on the next slide, I just want you to remember that when approaching the sales process, build rapport, build relationships. with the people that you already have a relationship with, or people you hope to build a relationship with. And be yourself, relax, think about it. The company that you have is a company that was in your heart and that you thought of. So it's important that you're passionate about it and that you believe that you can help people with the product or service that you're offering. And then have a certain way to set yourself apart. How are you different from the people that are competing? Remember, everybody has a different fingerprint. So everybody has a different idea, and so do you. So set yourself apart. And most importantly, listen. When you offer somebody your product or service, listen. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, is what my dad used to tell me. That means that you should do more listening than you do talking. And however they determine to work with you, be patient, yet be persistent. So I hope that helps you guys and makes a difference in your startup, your growth, your existing business. So I hope that helps. Catherine.
Okay, so I have a presentation portion of this as well, but it's going to take us over time. And so instead of me launching into that presentation and then getting halfway through and taking up more time than people here have committed to, what I would like to do, if it's okay with you, Paige, is use the next couple minutes for Q&A. And then what I'll do is I'll record my presentation as a part of this presentation, and then that will go up on YouTube later today, later this week. And then you can, you can watch my presentation later. You can even watch it on double time so that it doesn't eat into the rest of your afternoon. Does that sound like a good plan to you, Paige?
Sure, absolutely.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put our contact and links and everything up on the screen, and then we can take questions through the chat, or if you have a question, feel free to unmute yourself and go ahead and ask your question.
All right, I have a question. All right. So for the sales cycle, when you want to talk about your value proposition, I sometimes find it hard to think of like very concrete ways that people would be very compelled to work with me. I have more subjective ways, like, I'm a marketing expert. I'm very personable and give great personalized service and save people a lot of time. But it's all kind of like subjective. It's not like, oh, I make you $4 for every $1 you give or anything like that. So I was wondering, is that enough, or do I really have to think about how I could come up with like more hard evidence of why I'm good to work with?
Mark, what do you do?
So I sell advertising specialties and also signs, banners, and printing.
Okay. And your question is that people, give that to me once again.
Like when basically I'm describing my value proposition, I let people know basically, I save you time, I'm easy to work with, come up with expert solutions,
Yes.
So, but that anyone could say that, but it is true, but I do also feel like anyone could just say that. So I'm wondering, is that impressive enough, or do I need to like be more creative and think of something else?
Mark, is there any way that you can create a demonstration video? Is there any way that you can create maybe a 15 or a 30-second video that actually shows the different products, or maybe people that have used those different products and how beneficial that is? So almost like a demonstration video and maybe a testimonial. I mean, that's something that you could do right from your cell phone, right, that you can, share with people and show them how other people have used that product or service and been successful with it.
Yeah.
Does that help?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Good.
Yeah.
Mark, I'm going to echo Paige's comments there. So we're talking about the difference between qualitative and quantitative, right? Are you saying, look, I can save you time, or I'm going to save you 4 minutes a day. I'm going to save you money, or I'm going to save you $1,000 a month, right? if people don't have a budget, $1,000 a month isn't going to mean much to them. What
Yeah,
they might
right.
need is somebody that they can trust, that they can talk to, that they can have a conversation with, that if the sign or banner doesn't come out the way that they want, you're there on the other end to talk through a solution, even if it is going to cost them more money.
Mhm.
So I think those personal qualifications are really important. They're going to be better sounding from your customers. So having Google reviews saying, Mark was great, he saved me so much time on my business. Mark was great, he saved me, I got a couple quotes around, he was the best price, for what I needed to get done. Or Mark is great, I will always work with him because he always picks up the phone and I don't have to play phone tag for a week before I actually get something done. Right? So it's something that you can definitely use. It's stronger coming from your customers, but it doesn't mean that that's less valuable. So I think you can say that. The Alabama Small Business Development Center doesn't say, we save you time and money. We say we're growing Alabama's economy one business at a time, right? It doesn't
Right.
say how many businesses we're trying to help start at any one time. So
Right.
I think that relationship, especially here in Alabama, where, I think culturally the impact of COVID on missing that face-to-face, that interactivity, it really hurts the Alabama culture of doing business and being together.
Mhm.
So you saying, look, let's have a conversation. Let's have a relationship. I want to help your business grow. I want to help you, I don't know if you do parties and things like that, but if you do specialty party stuff, I want to help you have the most special party with the 10 people that are allowed to attend. That's the kind of thing that I think would resonate really well.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. That's good, Catherine.
Great question, Mark. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, looks like we've got another question that popped up in the chat. Okay. Case studies from customers is always great to use on your company website. Absolutely. Case studies, testimonials, Google reviews, and Google reviews, a lot of people are scared of having public reviews. Having an occasional negative review is okay. It shows that you are a real company and that you're not trying to help every single person that walks in the door. And that when you do have a complaint, you actually do something about it. So making sure that when you do get those complaints, because it's a when, it's not an if, that you respond to them and you say, look, I'm sorry. And there are studies that say you shouldn't say you're sorry. I am not a believer in that. I know the data is against me there, but I'm one of those people that's if you're wrong, if you've done something wrong, you should apologize. So thank you so much for that. Case studies from customers is always great to use on your company's website. And there was a question earlier about government contracting. That's fantastic for government contracting as well. So if you have, if you're targeting federal contracts, or if you're targeting Alabama Power or something like that, having other companies have statements that you're advertising on your website is definitely the way to go, because it shows in a glimpse that not only are people willing to compliment you, that they're willing to put their name to it, which is more and more rare these days with the anonymity of social media. What other questions do we have? We're just at 3 o'clock, so we'll take one more question. And then if you have to go, we really appreciate your time. You get the PDF, which is going to have all of our slides, and then the video will be out later this week on our YouTube channel. One last question. Nope. Okay. All right. I'm going to back up and launch into my presentation then. Okay. Okay. So Paige started to talk about, and really a lot of her conversation was about focus. And so what I'm going to focus on in my portion of the presentation is, what exactly do you focus on? There's a lot of things you can be doing, right? Managing your social media, helping customers over here, making sure your process is flowing nicely. I argue that one of the most important things you can focus on is your economic engine, specifically what I call, or what not, this isn't even my term, it's called your economic denominator. profit per X. And I'll get into examples because this is kind of a mysterious concept, but once you get it, it's going to change your business. So profit per X. So here's kind of the description. If you could pick one and only one ratio, profit per whatever that item is, to systematically increase over time, what X would have the greatest and most sustainable impact on your economic engine? What would keep pushing things forward? What is this bottom gear here that is pushing all of the rest of this forward? It can be obvious, it may not be. I'm going to help you work through the process of figuring out what your economic engine, what your profit per X is, what your X is, your X factor even, so that you know what to sell, because not all sales are made equal. Okay, so here are some examples, and these are taken from a book called Good to Great by Jim Collins. It's one of the classic, excellent reads for business. It's a little bit outdated at this point. Some of these companies are no longer sort of at the peak of where he was studying them. But for the time frame that he was looking at them, these companies on the screen, Walgreens, Wells Fargo, Fannie Mae, Gillette, Kimberly-Clark, and many others, were beating their competitors in their industries, regardless of whether they were in an industry that was succeeding or failing, and regardless of how well their competitors were doing. So Walgreens, when they started their transformation, they were evaluating their X as profit per store. So their store was the X factor for them. And so they would take down stores that were taking away from the profitability of other more profitable stores. However, they realized that that's not the most powerful way that they can do business. The most powerful way they can do business is looking at profit per customer, which creates a very different business model. That says they need to be the most convenient drugstore in the United States. And so instead of focusing on per store, they focused on customer visit. And so instead of taking down stores, they built more. And they built them on corner lots so that people could enter and exit from two different directions. So when we're thinking about profit per customer visit, that leads to a lot more, or a very different strategic objective than profit per store. Wells Fargo, instead of looking at profit per loan, they transitioned to profit per employee. And so instead of having tons of branches around, fully staffed with both administrative as well as loan officers, they ended up taking down a lot of their offices, their branches, replacing them with ATMs, shrinking down their employees to the critical loan officer employees, and then trying to maximize the profits per employee. Now, we all know that the incentive structure there may not have turned out the best for them, but at the same time, over I think a 2-decade or 3-decade time period, it really did work for them. Fannie Mae. Fannie Mae is a mortgage lender, and they went from looking at all mortgages as the same, which they knew, and we know from getting mortgages, not all mortgages are the same risk level. And so instead of looking at mortgages as one product category that they were selling, they started to break it down into mortgage risk levels. And so they had profit per mortgage risk level, low risk, medium, high. I'm not sure how many levels they had, but for the purposes of what they were doing, they separated out and they segmented that risk.
I was doing a, what you call it?
Mark, are you talking to us?
Oh, sorry.
Okay, I'm going to mute you. So Gillette is the next example. So Gillette is, they went from profit per customer to profit per division. And so instead of looking at per customer again, they were looking at division. And then Kimberly-Clark, probably my favorite example, is they went from profit per mill. Now we're talking paper mills because Kimberly-Clark is a consumer paper brand product, very relevant in the time of COVID, right? So they started looking, instead of just per mill, per fixed asset, which is kind of the obvious way to think about it, to profit per customer brand. And so they started thinking, okay, what can our brand of this do and how can we maximize profits here? And so that really leads to what is your economic denominator? And so I'm going to launch a poll. I see that we still got 14 participants hanging in there. Thanks, you guys are super troopers. So let's see what kind of responses we get here. So what is your economic denominator? profit per customer visit, profit per transaction. So I'm one of those annoying people on Amazon that will buy something and then I'm still on Amazon, see something else and buy it. Separate transactions, right? Profit per employee, per category, per brand, other and not yet sure. Other and not yet sure are totally acceptable answers here. But if you do know your economic denominator, or if you've been functioning on a specific assumption of what your economic denominator is, you're starting down the right path. And I'll leave it open for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, let's look at these results. Okay, so we've got profit per customer. 4 people said yes, that's 57% there. That's great. Profit per transaction, not yet sure. You guys, you're in it to win it, I can tell. So these are just some examples, and I'm going to share some more so you can kind of think through what, how you figure it out if you don't know, or how do you make sure you're figuring out the right profit denominator or economic denominator. So I'm going to use the example of Uber. And basically you can start by looking at the key activities. So Uber's key activity in the early stages of their company was getting drivers. Drivers then advertised to riders, and they had to pull drivers from other places. They had to pull drivers from existing transportation companies like taxis. They had to pull folks who had a car that were not sure whether they wanted to share or not. They had to pull those folks in. But once they pulled the drivers in, the folks that needed transportation were just hailing whoever was on the street or whoever they could quickly get a hold of, right? So drivers were the key activity that Uber spent their time doing. And so that ended up being their economic denominator. Another way to look at it is considering what will remain the same if your revenue streams shift. Now this one's a little bit tricky, and it's definitely going to take more brain power than we have time to kind of get into the meat of, or the vegan burger, if we've got some vegans out there. So it's definitely critical to have some help talk through this with friends and family, customers even, stakeholders. Paige is available, I'm available, the team over at Rev is available. I saw Charmaine Chapman, I saw the Birmingham Business Alliance. All of the different partners in Rebound Birmingham are here to help you kind of figure through these types of issues. So with Uber used drivers only for passengers at first. And now what are they using them for? They're using them for transportation of goods. They're using them for delivery of food and things like that. So the revenue streams have shifted for Uber, but the economic denominator, getting drivers, has really stayed the same, right? That's why it's controversial when you see somebody with the Lyft and Uber signs in their window. You're like, I don't know. Okay, so now that you've got a sense of what an economic driver is, let's talk about how to calculate it. So this is going to involve some math skills, so get out your calculator. Not hard math at all. And again, this is here briefly for the presentation, forever on YouTube, and in your inboxes it's going to be a PDF, and so you can continuously reference this. So calculating your gross profit. Your gross profit is in dollars. Your gross profit margin, on the other hand, is a percentage. So when we think through gross profit, profit margin, that's kind of the big difference. So gross profit, revenue minus cost, pretty simple, dollar amount. And you can look at that over different categories. Your profit margin per unit, for example, is once you calculate that gross profit, revenue minus cost, you take that X divided by that revenue, you multiply it by 100 and you've got your margin. Now let's look at profit margin per category or division. And so that was the Kimberly-Clark was per brand, division was Gillette, razors, and I think they make shaving cream and other things. So you do revenue of the category minus the cost of that category divided by the revenue of that category. And again, because we're talking about margins, we're going to multiply it by 100. So that is a way that you can look at the category. And same with employees. Now, revenue of employee minus the cost of total goods sold by that employee. Some people will include labor If you're providing a service, then the labor should be included as your cost of goods sold. If you're selling a product, then your cost of goods sold should exclude that labor, except the labor that goes directly into the sale of the good. So revenue of employee minus cost of total goods sold by that employee divided by the revenue, and that will get you to your profit per employee, or if you multiply it by 100, profit margin per employee. And then the last example I have here, just to kind of really cement this, this equation in here, is profit per customer visit. So how long are people spending on your website? Even if you're like me and you make 1,000 transactions while scanning around on Amazon, it's that one total visit, right? So it might take me 10 minutes to make the first transaction, and then I remember I need dog food, and then I remember I need cat food. And then I'm like, why the heck not? I'll get some cat toys as well. 3 transactions, but that total time spent on the site would be the customer visit. So revenue per customer visit minus cost per customer visit divided by the revenue per customer visit. So those are how you calculate what your profit is. And so why would you want to calculate this? Well, as Paige indicated earlier, it's because you want to track this data. You want to know who is buying what, when, and how much, and what is it doing to your profit. If you have to slim down on your product categories, or if you only have a certain amount of time and energy, if you only have $300 to advertise, what are you going to advertise? If you want to upsell, or if you realize that you're not making any profit on specific goods, and it's not a huge cost, maybe you use them as like a free gift, buy now and get a free gift, right? It increases the urgency and the likelihood that they're going to make a purchase on a product that actually has a profit for your company. Okay, so that's the quick and dirty of my presentation. Paige really went through a lot more information. I think we still have some folks hanging in there. You're champions. I really appreciate your time. I hope I didn't fly through this information too quickly, but I hope there are also some questions. So what questions do we have? I'll take about 5 minutes to answer a couple questions. You can either drop them in the chat or feel free to unmute yourself and share your questions. No questions? All right. Well, so wrapping it up, we've got the focused sales process, and this really just reiterates Paige's method earlier. And so in kind of five critical steps, you define your economic denominator, and then you define your revenue, profit, and cost goals. You establish your marketing practices that bring in those marketing qualified leads and funnel them into your sales pipeline, right? They're in awareness in step 3, and they are making their way towards desire in step 4, and then finally closing the sale on those qualified leads. Oops. Just one more note on selling to the government. There are more opportunities than most people realize. So when we think about selling to the government, we don't just consider the federal government alone, right? We've got the federal government, state government, counties, and local governments. And then we have private companies that have contracts with the government that have mandates for working with small businesses. So Alabama Power, Raytheon, Brassfield, and Gorey are examples of that. We've got city schools, the ALDOT, and many, many more.